Now that I know that you've gotten potty out of the way, we can go ahead and start the show.
That would have been a great cold open if I hadn't been in the middle of a drink.
The Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer90.com. Don't forget, I know I'm just reinforcing what you already know, to shop at Soccer90.com for all your FC Dallas, national team, and international club gear. And because you are a kissable, squeezable Third Degree listener, you get 25% off your order when you use the code Third Degree at checkout at Soccer90.com. Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another episode of Third Degree, the podcast. I think it's episode number 119 now. This will come as a surprise to nobody, but we are down a man today, deep in depression, probably have fallen off the wagon, and hiding somewhere in a closet in his apartment is Dan Crooke in the fallout from England's loss in the European Championship final on, of course, PKs. So everybody send your love and thoughts and well wishes to Dan, or just send him a funny tweet making fun of England losing again on PKs, whichever makes you feel better. In the meantime, it's just me and your hero and my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder of thirddegree.net, the amazing Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Hi, Peter. I don't think I'm going to be kissing any of our listeners, despite your claim that they're kissable.
You should, because they're paying, some of them pay you money, and if they want to kiss, you should be willing to whore yourself out like that, Buzz.
Yeah. No, my wife doesn't like that so much. Yeah.
It's just a saying, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Buzz, we are in a down week for Football Club Dallas because the Gold Cup has kicked off, and we're watching all of that glorious soccer excitement. And we're waiting for Dallas to get back to playing. And their next game is on the 17th against Portland out in Oregon. So we'll get to your training visit today and stuff here in a little bit. But I think if I'm just going by smart broadcasting / podcasting 101, I need to go with the headline stuff. And I think the biggest news since the last time we talked was the somewhat surprising news, although you've been prepping us for this for a while, that Thomas Roberts has left the country and has gone out on loan. Loan, not sale. So what's the story behind Thomas Roberts leaving the country?
Yeah, he's going to a club in Austria. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it because I'm sure
I was wondering if you were going to give it a shot.
Austria Kligenspell. I have no idea how you pronounce the name of that club.
Kligenspiel.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But this has been in the cards for, as they mentioned on their website, that he had a trial in January, like after the Bayern thing, when Edwin and Cervania went to the other club in Austria. Thomas went to this club. And he was there a couple of days and then got hurt. And they were even like within a day or two, they were so excited and they were basically all over him at that point. And then he had to come back to the United States and rehab. And through that process, Lucci talked him into waiting basically until this window, which is fine. They were in the second division at that point, and now they've been promoted up. And of course, they're pulling the trigger on the loan deal. Now, there is not a buy clause in the loan. It's just a straight loan. But my sources say that Thomas is 100% for sale. Like if they want him, they can have him for whatever price it is that FC Dallas deems that he's at. It's clear, I think, from anyone that watches this team for more than 5 minutes, that Thomas was not in the plans with Lucci. He wasn't getting game action. So he certainly is available. And this club has shown of late that they are absolutely a selling club and will sell anybody, even if it hurts the team, basically. So
okay,
that's the news for Thomas.
All right. So let me pose this question to you, because in the last podcast, we all took a gauge on where we thought the Lucci hot seat setting was from a range of 1 to 10. And you and Dan said 5. I said, I think it's super hot at 9. I don't know who's right or wrong, but I do wonder when it comes to roster construction and the sale of players or the inbound, the buying of players, If we think that there is a better than 50% chance that Lucci is not going to be the coach next season, do you think there's hesitation to sell or move on to anybody, knowing that there's a good chance that there may be somebody else running this team next time, or this time next year?
So I think there's some hot seat on Zanata as well, but Lucci does not have veto power. If Lucci had veto power, Thiago Santos would not have been sold. They're not making sell or buy decisions based on what Lucci wants. Clearly.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
If there's somebody in the club that thinks there is something to Thomas's game, and they're enjoying the fact that he's out on loan and getting minutes, would there, and maybe in theory, be any hesitation to sell him to Austria because maybe the next guy thinks he's a starter for them here in Dallas next season?
Well, that's fair. I mean, maybe that's why there's not a buy in the loan. Maybe that's why, they want to reserve the right to, if he crushes it over there and all of a sudden Byron's sniffing around or something. I mean, and I don't know for sure that Byron's involved in this deal, but the timing of all three of those guys that went to Austria right from the Bayern camp and all that stuff, and the fact that Bayern they sent Booth with Cerrillo the first time, there's definitely some backdoor, hey, you guys should really take a look at this kid kind of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if he crushes it, don't be surprised if at the end of the loan, all of a sudden, here comes Bayern again. Remember, they tried to take Thomas on loan last year, and FC Dallas turned him down. So they like the kid, and there are certainly people inside the organization that think very highly of the kid. So if the coach changes, maybe it's a case of then they want to keep him. So, I don't know. I don't think Thomas is burned enough in terms of FC Dallas. I think this is about, his interest in this is to get playing time and to play, not necessarily like that he hates FC Dallas or something. I don't think that's the case, but yeah. By the way, he's going to have jersey number 3. I mean, that's not an attacking number, but at least it's a 1 through 11 squad number. That's a valued number. So that's cool that they gave him that number.
We also learned that before the club being FC Dallas, could even announce it, he had already traveled all the way to Austria and suited up for the team and played in a preseason scrimmage and scored in 22 seconds in his debut as a sub onto the field.
Yeah.
Now, that obviously creates a lot of questions like, well, wait a second. If he's kicking ass 22 seconds in over there, why isn't he even getting minutes over here? And before I'm going to let you answer that question, we should caveat that with, I think if I'm reading the team, they were essentially playing like a local pub team or something. So it wasn't like they were, doing early Champions League round games or anything like that.
Well, whoever they were playing, it said they finished 6th in something. The translation got a little, I thought it meant 6th in the Austrian Bundesliga, but maybe it didn't. And Thomas's club was on the road at that team, and it was the second half. He came in at halftime, Thomas did. So that was 20 seconds after halftime, and obviously they just caught the team napping or whatever. But the article said if I Google translated it correctly, it said he was impressive. So there's a coach, they posted an article on their site with quotes from both Thomas and from their coach, and their coach was very complimentary and very excited about Thomas. I mean, listen, I don't think that the Austrian Bundesliga is as good as MLS. That's my opinion. I think it's better than USL 1, certainly. So this is going to be a good opportunity for Thomas where he'll be able to play, and I think he'll be able to shine. And hopefully good things are going to come for the kid. So
okay, but what was his shortcoming with Lucci that could not even get him substitute minutes or even regular bench appearances in 2021? That's the piece of this that I'm confused by.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. There's a perception that Thomas is not a good defender because he's an attacking sort of playmaking type player. But he's worked really hard to be a real legit two-way player, and he will chase down and he will track and he will defend. And I think he does a pretty good job of stealing balls off like Paxton does. So I'm not really sure. The one negative I would have on Thomas right now is that he will switch off occasionally. Like you don't get 90 minutes of focus. You get 85 minutes of focus. Like there's occasional switch off on a moment of discouragement, and sometimes when he's trying these really creative things, if they don't come off, then it does set up the team the other way. So like if you want somebody that plays super conservative and isn't going to, risk anything, well, he's not your guy. He's going to risk stuff. So maybe that's it because they're trying to use him as an 8 because they don't really have a 10. He's not really a wing. that's part of it too. Is like, what do we do with him? The position they're kind of using him. Dallas has like 10 people that play that spot. So, it's just a case, I think, of him not being Lucci's guy, as opposed to Paxton and Jesus, who are. I don't know that Lucci coached Thomas very much in the academy, because Lucci switched from the 17s to the 19s, I think, right as Thomason was going through there. And so they flip-flopped. I don't think he had him very much. So I don't know. I think it's just a question of it's just not his guy.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all a great mystery, and we wish Thomas the best. And so and hopefully it goes well, and maybe, they've thought, well, maybe we do need him back here. Now, the other thing that's kind of gone off the radar a little bit is, what is the situation with Tanner Tessman's deal? I think we're all under the impression that he's essentially gone. He traveled to Italy, and he'll be suiting up in the Serie A. We just haven't heard any announcement.
Yeah, no, he's gone for sure. He's over there already. By the time this podcast goes live, his transfer will have been announced by FC Dallas. So I know today that it's coming tomorrow morning, aka Thursday morning. So I'm not going to post this pod until it happens, because I've now said that it's going to happen. I'll have to edit this out if it doesn't happen. But it's the team's announcing it tomorrow morning. So it's done and dusted. He's gone. That is a transfer based on all the reports. It's going to be interesting. Now, Tanner's a very level-headed, very business-like kid in a lot of ways. He came here to the Dallas at 14 by himself, lived with a family, of course, another player. But, he's going to be fine over there. That club's making some other moves, so it doesn't look like they're thinking Tanner's like the answer. So that'll be good.
Yeah, isn't that where Buzio is also rumored to be going?
Yes,
too?
Yeah, it is, and I'm sure they've got some other pieces too. The fact that they're interested in Buzio and Tanner is indicative that they're trying to build not just short term but long term too. That they're interested in young talent as well as guys that'll help them stay up.
Then there's also been some moves of former Dallas players. We found out that Jonathan Gomez is going to Spain after there's some weird story behind his contract with Louisville City. I don't know the details of it, but it appears that the fan base isn't real happy with the ownership of how this happened. But I was always under the impression that he was always going to Europe as soon as he turned 18 anyway, no matter who he was playing for. Yeah,
what I knew about his discussions with Dallas, the main sticking point was how long that Dallas wanted him to sign. Dallas likes... on homegrown deals, they generally like 3 years plus 2 years of options, which at the time would have been not till Gomez was 19, then 2 options on top of that. Well, that was the sticking point. They didn't want that. They wanted to be free at 18. Now, maybe there was some money in there too. I don't know I'm privy to the details. I just know that was the big sticking point, and that the reason he went to Louisville City, I had been told, was that basically he was just going to be free when he was 18. Well, Louisville City is saying, or other people are saying, that there was a clause that if Hackworth left, his coach Hackworth left, then he would be free. Well, he must have known something then, because the whole point was for him to be free this summer or this November when his contract will actually run out. I think they're going to end up selling him now because they can get $100K for him or something rather than letting him walk for nothing. So he's going to be gone. He just turned 18 like a month or two ago. So this has been on the cards all along. I don't know why anyone would have thought that kid was going to be here past 18, regardless of what kind of contract he had.
Yeah, and do you have a sense that that's a player that Dallas will ultimately regret not signing to a bigger deal?
Yeah, 100%. But listen, it's not. They were offering him homegrown. It's not like they were offering him nothing. So it was about the time. His older brother had already gone to Europe. All his eyes were on the Europe. That was what he wanted. So it wasn't because of money that they lost this kid. But yes, absolutely 100%. This is going to be a big miss kid. It's not going to be Weston McKennie big, but it's definitely going to be, a full long career in Europe. Man, how do we miss that guy big? You'll be hearing about him for the next, 12 to 15 years.
And then just kind of the crumbs in there. There was a local Solar kid that signed with a European club this week, and then a former Dallas goalkeeper, Seth Wilson, also has signed with a European club.
Seth Wilson signed with somebody in Portugal. That poor kid, he came out of the academy right in the middle of the pandemic, and he had some things lined up in Europe, and they all got derailed, as some other kids. That happened to Roman Torres too got some stuff derailed because of the COVID and all that stuff. So Wilson did some things. He trained with Solar. He trained with Oklahoma City. He kept himself busy. You notice he didn't train with FC Dallas. So he's now going over there.
So one of the things that I find interesting about all this news is at some point you got a tweet from the great Charlie, one of the longest running fans of this team. And she's been a fan since literally day one. And she asked a question, which was, because you had also tweeted out that I think a kid not in the academy or maybe in the academy signed an agent. And this is the second or third very young player that we've read has been, signing up with agents, despite the fact that they can't really sign deals. Their ability to sign contracts and stuff is pretty limited based on their age. And the question being, why are kids doing this now? I think the obvious thing is it goes back to like the Jonathan Gomez situation, which is, these are business situations, and these kids have parents that probably don't know much about this stuff, and they need agents to help them navigate these waters to figure out which is the best path for their professional career, right?
Well, a lot of people probably don't know that agents get involved with kids way earlier than when they can sign professional. And what they do is they just offer advice for free. And the best kids will have multiple agents making this offer. And their hope is obviously that if I give good advice to the kid, that when it's time for him to sign, he'll sign with me. Mm-hmm. Now, for a kid to actually sign with an agent before he's 18, well, he's just given up all college. Like, college is out the window for this kid. So the kids that you see do this are the ones that are 100% convinced they're going to be a professional, or they're a kid who thinks for whatever reason that college is not in the cards for them, and they need some help to find some kind of professional opportunity, even if it's not going to be Major League Soccer. They need a job, or they need to make some money, or they can't get into college, or whatever it is. Everyone's background is different, and they all have different circumstances. So this kid in particular, that first, to answer your question that Chaz asked, which is why is this happening? I think it's just because there are more and more professional teams here in the United States. We now have 3 divisions of professional soccer, and we're about to have another one in the Division 3, the MLS version. So there's more and more opportunity, and kids are seeing that.
Yeah.
And I think they're choosing to roll the dice rather than go to college, or a kid that can't go to college. So that's the main reason why I think it's happening now. I don't know if that's for sure, because I think it's just sort of, I don't think these guys are like getting together or anything. I think it's just happening. And this kid in particular, last year he played up with the 19s because the 19s were a little thin. So he was a 2004 playing with the 2003s and 2002s. He will again be a U19, and there's going to be a fair number of 2005s are going to come up because the 04s are really thin also. So he's probably one of the best 1 or 2 players that are going to be actual U19s left. I maybe would put him in that. I might throw him a North Texas contract and see how it goes. I know he has trained with North Texas when he was still in the U17 age group. So he's just now going to be 17, 18. So he's that second, third tier kind of prospect that we talk about. It's interesting to see it happening more and more. You're definitely right that it's an upward trend.
And then the other weird rumor that popped up out of the blue was that Javier Pastore, the Argentinian midfielder who is currently under contract with Roma, is being sniffed about by MLS clubs, one of which being our very own Dallas. And I was mystified by this. There's no, you don't know anything behind if this is actually a real thing, is it, Buzz?
I don't think so. I think this is one of those deals where whoever's repping him that's leaking this, I think that they're leaking it with the idea that the Hunts know the Roma owner. He's the guy that owns Toyota, that is the Toyota Stadium. He's the guy that was involved in the Reynolds move the other way.
Yeah, let me clarify. He doesn't own Toyota. He owns Gulf States, which is the regional organization that owns dealerships for Toyota.
He's the Toyota that is the Toyota Stadium that sponsors FC Dallas. So there's the Hunt connection is there. So it's an easy thing to suggest that he's offering this player to the Hunts. He very well may have offered this player to the Hunts. I don't think it makes any sense. I mean, for one thing, when was the last time you saw Dallas play with a formation that used like an attacking mid? Now, I'm sure he could fall swing or whatever, but are you going to take that time away from Paxton or Pepe or Jesus or whatever? I know the wings have been bad, but I don't know that a 31-year-old DP wing is the answer. It'd be one thing if you were
wing.
I mean, I know, but where's he going to play for Dallas? Is he going to play 8 for Dallas? Or is he going to play false wing? I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're not taking Jesus out of the game, right? Are they, to play this kid? Yeah.
I'm lost. I mean, look, I don't think there's anything to it either. And I do think that probably if there is any connection, it's simply because of the relationship that you mentioned a second ago. And he's got a bit of a checkered health past, if I remember correctly. And I'm not going to say that a 31-year-old guy can't come into Major League Soccer and be an impact player. I mean, hell, I think Portland or somebody or Seattle or who was it that just signed like a 36-year-old left back today? Somebody in the league did. Yeah. Well, not 36, maybe it was 33, but like an over 30-year-old defender. I just, it doesn't make a lot of sense that Dallas would put any money towards something like that. Not just the transfer fee, but the salary that almost would certainly come along with that just doesn't make any sense.
I mean, surely he's a DP, right? But would this be the guy that would push Dallas like over the top, like, solve all the problems? I just don't know that they would pull the trigger on a guy that it would need like.
Well,
look at this roster.
A lot of. Yeah, it would create a lot of problems because you've got. I mean, if they have depth, and I'm using air quotes here, it's in the center of the park.
Yeah, I mean, you would need with this roster as it is now, you would need 2 or 3 seasons to really like build it correctly to use this guy effectively. Well, then he'd be like 33, 34. I mean, I've heard of crazier things. I really hope this one isn't real. This is not the kind of player that I would want. It's like I struggle for sometimes with the guys that are 28, 29 that come in, let alone if they're 31 already. Doesn't make sense for me.
No. And certainly maybe he kind of plays a position they probably thought maybe Ricarte was more going to do than obviously Ricarte doesn't play, I guess. I don't know. It's a very weird, and it certainly would, it would just add more question marks to why they bought Ricarte. But anyway, set that aside. Let's just assume that's all crap and there's nothing to it. Because it would then put into question their kind of checking out players internationally. One of the more interesting conversations that I saw you have on your Third Degree Discord, which is the chat room that you have for people that are Patreons of thirddegree.net, was the whole conversation about your attending the North Texas game the other day and how out of shape you reported Mr. Vargas to have been in.
Yeah. That's a weird situation because even in the spring, I mean, he looked ridiculous. Like he was good for like 20 minutes and then he just stood around for 80 minutes. Of course, in the 20 minutes, he was clearly the best player on the field and had contributed to all 3 goals in that 20 minutes. But like if you look at him, he's not carrying extra weight. He is a little bit of a larger upper body kind of player. So was Santiago Mascara. And so there's an analogy there between the way both of those guys play, that sort of in and out of the game where like you don't get like a full 90-minute Paxton Pomykal grind out of the guy. You get, in and out kind of thing. And that's okay if you produce. And in the spring, Vargas produced. And when he went down to North Texas, he produced. So for me, Vargas I think he's 21 now. He's a 1999, which is the same age year as Paxton, I believe. So there's something to build on and work with there and see if it can goes. But man, I watched that game and I was like, good Lord, this guy's in horrible shape. I'm not sure that it's not just mental and it's not just kind of the guy he is. I mean, like you can think of creative influential players that took 80 minutes off of the game, right? I mean, they talk about Messi that way. Like he walks more than anybody else in the game.
Well, I mean, he gets away with it because he actually produces when he does have the ball.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The only reason why he gets away with it.
Right. And that's the thing about this Vargas guy. In the spring, looked awesome. In the USL 1 game, looked awesome. So obviously he's better than that level. So the question is, can you develop him? I'll put up with the half the game standing around if he has 3 assists a game in MLS, So, I mean, for me, the guy is firmly entrenched as a project. I think they're going to use him a little bit internally and see how that goes, a little false swing, see how that goes. I mean, he's not, obviously right now, he's not the starting choice anymore. He's definitely lost that out. But I'm not, I like that kid more than I liked Obrian, actually, at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting because my perception is that Obrian was brought in here and it was assumed that he would be a starter and chew up a lot of minutes on the right, and Vargas was more of this kind of project player that they brought in, and if it worked out and he started, that'd be great, but they also had other options they could use on the left if they wanted to.
Absolutely.
And I'm convinced both of them are a bit of a bust. And I do wonder, because we've seen this over the years, like so many guys have come up here and moved to Frisco from a foreign country, whether it be Eastern Europe or South America, and some of these guys just have a hard time getting acclimated to society and being without family, and it affects their ability to play because you go watch highlight reels and you're like, where's that guy? I'm like, well, maybe the dude's just unhappy and just doesn't want to be here anymore. And the way you describe him, that would be kind of my unfair, off-the-cuff, knee-jerk reaction to what's going on, is maybe he's just not happy living.
Yeah. I found out that Ricarte had that same issue last year. They had trouble getting Ricarte's family here, but they apparently have solved that. That is definitely 100% true with Vargas. Yeah. Vargas's wife and kid have not been able to get into the country. So he's absolutely being affected by that, for sure. Now, when I watched the North Texas game, was the fact that he only looked like half of the game fit. Is that related to that? No. I mean, I think there's definitely some lack of game fitness, right? He didn't play for Venezuela when he was gone, and he didn't play for FC Dallas before he left. I mean, that's why they sent him to North Texas, was to get him back towards game fitness. But for him, that's a relative term. Again, he's not going to be in the first team mix, I don't think, for the short period. I would expect him to play for North Texas again, actually, this weekend, since they have a home game.
Well, speaking of that, they do play again, as we said, on hold on, I'm looking
Saturday.
They work on Saturday, yeah. They travel to Oregon. They're playing Portland. The game is on at 9:30 on TX21. You went to training today, Buzz.
Yeah.
And you talked to Lucci, and you've got some. What's the big takeaway from practice today?
Well, today was an experimentation day where, based on the combinations I was watching, I think it's fascinating. Some days the first 11 is clearly obvious. Today was not a day like that. There was some defensive groupings that were obvious, but the front. 6 were in constant flux, constant changes, constant different combinations. I even asked Lucci about it afterwards, and he said that, they're looking for stuff. They're looking for specific things. They're trying some different options. I mean, look, the team stinks, right? They're trying to get better. So they're not just sitting there doing the same old thing. It's very much, Lucci admitted, very much a game-by-game mentality right now. All we're thinking about is the one game that's next. We're not looking at anything else than that. And the thing that drove me the most crazy about this, and you're going to love this, is that there was one player that did not shift positions all day and was clearly the number 9 choice all day, and that was Franco Jara. It was not Ricardo Pepi. Ricardo Pepi spent the entire day as a winger. And the other team, the second team, if you will, although it wasn't a first team and a second team, Dante Seeley played 9 for most of the day for the other group. So it wasn't like Pepi was on one team and Jara was on the other. Most of the time, Pepi and Jara were on the same team, with Jara as a 9 and Pepi as a winger. So before you say, what the hell, I'll tell you, because I asked Lucci. I thought, that's just crazy. Well, the short answer...
Did you grab him by the scruff of his shirt and shake him and go, what are you doing?
Yeah, shook him. Obviously, like I said, it was a day of experimentation. Thursday and Friday will be the first choice day, but he's definitely considering starting Franco because the game's on the road. And you'll remember, Peter, the last podcast. Stay with me here. You remember the last podcast? We talked about how Pepi and Jesus were on an island, and the opposition team just put 4 guys around him and boxed him in, and it was worthless, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because Pepi is not sort of a back to goal kind of guy, he can't really, so far in his career, play hold up ball. He can't scrap and bang and knock off two center backs and hold the ball and let the team get out of the back. Well, Hara can kind of do that. So the idea with Hara is that he can hold the ball long enough that they can get out of their own end on the road. And he's going to keep, I think from what I saw, he's going to want to try and keep Pepe in the game because Pepe's his best scorer. And Jesus is in the game, and the other wing will be who knows who. We'll talk about who I'll guess later. But I don't love this idea. It's an idea, and I see what he means. I see what he means. Like, that's a legit concern. I just think Hara, in my opinion, Hara is so bad that it doesn't matter. But the guy does have a lot of veteran savvy. He does scrap. So maybe this is one of those cases where Lucci has a good idea. Maybe this is a terrible idea. We're going to find out. I don't think it's a very good idea. But, I think the problem is it's the same problem, but if you leave Pepe in there, the wings have got to get forward. We talked about this last game. It's that you have to be aggressive even when you play a mid to low block. Those wings who are coming back and sitting on top of the outside backs because they're not good enough, those wings have got to get forward around Pepe and Jesus. And if they don't, then you're going to get zero offense, which is what happened. And so rather than just have your wings be like, dude, you guys have got to get vertical or I'm going to yank you out of the game. Instead, they're just trying this. It looks like they're going to try this Franco Hara option. So we'll see how it goes. I don't like it, but it is what it is.
It's funny, and I feel like I need to say this because we dogpile on Hara a lot on this podcast because the amount of money he's making and the lack of production. But I do want to reinforce that I do want to reinforce and make sure everybody understands that I notice how hard the guy works when he comes on the field. He clearly is making an effort. It's not like he shows up and just stands there and does nothing. He was kind of doing that at the beginning, but I think as it became more and more apparent that he was struggling and people were getting more and more frustrated by his lack of production, at least his level of effort increased. And I do want to at least acknowledge that. If we haven't before, I want to do it again because I have appreciated that part of his game. But I'm with you. I don't understand. I mean, I think hold-up play is really, really important for this team, and they could use it. I just don't know how they're going to if in the long term that benefits the club in giving away those minutes from Pepe, who clearly could continue to develop and benefit from playing that position and learning it over the course of what I think we all agree is a lost season.
Yeah, I would also compliment Hara lately, certainly the latter half of this season so far, in that what we call the quality pro. Like every time I'm out of training, that dude is bringing it and busting his tail in training. And every time he comes in the game, he busts his tail in training. And he's been very positive. He's not yelling at players. He's not yelling at coaches. He's very positive and works hard. Like even doing extra finishing stuff today. Mm-hmm. So, full credit as far as that goes. Now, you might say something about you can only polish a turd so much. And that in the end is going to be the problem is the age is catching up with him and the verticality and the pace of this league is not right for him. So it doesn't work. But, it's not because he's not trying. I definitely will give him that. And, the coaches have recognized that. But I'm with you. I don't hate Pepe as a wing, actually. I think he's actually pretty good as a wing. I just want to see him used exclusively as a 9 the rest of the way with Jesus behind him because I think that's the future. I mean, that doesn't, So, again, this is one of those strategies where it's easy for me to say all that. I'm not the one that's actually making the decision and putting them in the lineup. So I'm not the coach. So it's easy for me to claim it's a bad idea. A lot of it's going to depend on the rest of the team, really. And that's, of course, where you still have a whole bunch of question marks.
All right, so going into the game against Portland, any other notes, injury situations?
Yeah. Well, Hedges and Martinez are both still out. Yeah, well, they both actually came outside and ran and jogged today.
It was Hedges and Martinez sightings?
Sightings, which is a win. Sightings is a win. Lucci says maybe a week and a half on both back into training. And listen, when you're starting your starting center backs who both get paid just short of $1 million are out. That's a big blow. We're watching Brisson and Nicosi Burgess. By the way, full credit to Nicosi Burgess. He's been, relatively speaking, fantastic. He's not Hedges, or Martinez, but I like at least his progression.
He may be better than Brisson.
He's better than Brisson in my book already. Anyway, so Hedges and Martinez probably 2 games from returning to training, which means, again, like how fast are they fit, blah, blah, blah. So that's not that great news. I do want to, however, compliment Justin Shea because his progression is incredible. Like a lot of times when a young player is progressing, it's just like over the course of a couple of games, you can feel it getting better. It's like Shea takes a huge leap forward every game in confidence and like his ability and stuff he's doing. Now he's still not a flying winger. He's still not Brian Reynolds, but like a bunch of the concepts they're working with him on are really high level, progression, and he's trying things and he's working on things. And this formation works fine with a defensive first outside back. And arguably the last few games, he's been the best actual defender out there, maybe, in terms of his pure defensive ability. Although Nkosi was pretty close in my estimation, if not better. And I thought Nkosi had a lot of big one-on-one battles that he won really well last game. So it's interesting to watch young guys progress. And sometimes we've noticed of late that some of the veterans are making boneheaded moments. Brassan's been guilty from a couple. Ryan's had 3 out of 4 games he's given up a goal. So, it's going to be some shifting, I think, going forward.
So going into Portland, pretty much status quo in terms of lineup, other than the Hara change that you suggested. Portland's missing a bunch. I'm sorry, what?
No, I think there's more. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to.
Yeah. Well, Acosta's out, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
So we have to talk about midfield. I think it's going to be Facco and Cerrillo, I think. I don't think Brandon Cervania, I don't think he's quite ready to get back like into a game in Lucci mind and not necessarily in my mind. And I think Edwin played a good enough game the other day that I'm predicting a Facco-Edwin combo, which I would not have done a week ago. But I thought Edwin played pretty well the other game.
Still no Ricarte.
Still no Ricarte. Today, still mostly playing as a 10. Although I did ask Lucci about him. And they're going to start using him deeper a bit more. Basically, the bottom line is numbers. It's like he's just not getting enough assists. He's not adding enough goals. He's not doing enough metrics, X this, G's that, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like they need goals now. And he's not bringing
Cerrillo's not going to provide that for them. And if anybody was creating opportunities at that point of the season, it was Ricarte. I am completely confused about why they brought this guy in. I'm confused how they used him. I don't understand it whatsoever. And if taking him off the field to put on Cerrillo because you don't think he creates enough assists, then that is a ridiculous calculation in my mind.
Yeah, I honestly think that Ricarte, as much as I like him, I think this is a Andres Zanata disconnect with Lucci signing. I think that's a good example of what you get when your technical director and your coach are not 100% in sync. Because, I think he's a terrific looking player, and I'm not sure Lucci knows what to do with him. So we'll see. Now, in the back, I think Johnny Nelson's going to start. I think Pepe will start at one of the wings. It will not be Ryan. I think Ryan's getting benched based on what I saw today, because he's given up 3 goals in 4 games, as I mentioned. And then the other wing was a whole lot of different people. It was not O'Brien first. It was Paxton first. But you know
Garrett Melcher?
Yeah, well, you noticed. Not Garrett.
You might as well try Garrett at this point.
Yeah. Well, you know, you mentioned that you saw Paxton sort of rubbing his hip, like the one game he started. Yeah. It's like every other day right now with that kid. It's like one day he feels great. The next day it's like, it's like they need to see an even consistent, I feel good all the time, really. He needs to prove something, Paxton does. He's got to force his way back in by being consistently quality, all day, not having this discomfort. As long as he keeps occasionally having some discomfort, it's going to be hard for them to start him consistently. So the other people that got looks there were Sean. Sean got a look. O'Brien got a look. Not really Dante Seeley. Not really Vargas. So I think it's down to Paxton or Sean or O'Brien for one wing with Pepe on the other. That's what
only one of those people are naturally right wing players, and that's the
Well,
one.
Pepe
we
can
all
play
hate
either
the
side,
most.
so you can flip him around. That's
Yeah,
fine.
but he's not naturally a winger. Period.
Pepe. No,
Yeah.
he does okay there though. Yeah, I mean that's.
Is that where we're at, Buzz?
Yeah.
We're at. They do okay. That's where we're at this
Yeah.
point.
I
We're
mean,
just,
honestly.
somebody that just does okay.
They have 2 wins.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, but what's ridiculous is they're completely within reaching distance
Yeah.
of getting back into it because they're only 5 points out of the
yeah.
sixth place, and they're playing Portland, who's only 2 points ahead of them, and
Yeah.
the West is just a total mess. And
It's crazy, right?
but we don't anticipate them changing the roster inbound, at least, do we
Right.
think?
Oh.
To in terms of this window, do we?
I really don't. Actually, I think that they'll add a defensive depth piece. Maybe it'll be from
Like a center back.
center back. Yeah, because we've just look, Brisson's one caution from sitting, and he has been for 2 games. And if that were to happen right now, it'd be Nkosi and what? I mean,
Well, they
Che?
could also, what they could do? They could go out and find a right back because Che certainly could slide in and
Yeah.
play center back since that's his natural position, which is interesting because the U.S. men's national team played. Reggie Cannon was hurt, which meant Shaq Moore got a call up and actually played very, very well in the game. And you tweeted out the open question of, I wonder if he'd be interested in coming back to
Yeah.
the United States. I don't know why he would do that. He's playing in Spain. He's getting exposure in Europe. I know he's playing in a second division, but I don't think Major League Soccer and the second division in Spain are that far off from each other. In fact, I'm sure you'll find a lot of people who think the second division of Spain is a lot better than Major League Soccer.
oh,
So,
they're crazy.
well, yeah, sure. Those are all opinions, right? But my point
Right.
being is they could go out and find a right back. Maybe it's
Sure.
Shaq. I don't know. Does Shaq want to come back to Frisco, though?
Well, the only reason I suggested Shaq is if you're trying to catch Reggie Cannon or Brian Reynolds, those 2 dudes just started for FC Dallas and got sold for multi-millions of dollars to top teams in top leagues. And Reggie's about to move to France, and Brian plays for Roma. Well, what's Shaq doing in second division? Nothing, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that it's not like FC Dallas right back isn't like a gold mine of opportunity that's clearly demonstrated by the last 2 guys. So someone to say oh, there's no way he'd come back. Dude, Reynolds just got sold for damn near $10 million. I don't know why you would think somebody would go, oh, no way I'm going there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it depends on how well he's playing for the team in Spain, and it's easier
Sure.
to move around once you're over there. And but again, the point being is, set Shaq aside, it is an opportunity because of Che's versatility, or the fact that his natural position is center back, is they could go out and find a really nice right back to fill that position, since they've decided that Eddie Majoma has passed away
Oof.
or got lost in a closet somewhere.
Well, I think Shea's progression at right back is good enough that they're pretty convinced that that's a good enough answer for this season. And Martinez and Hedges are, a couple of weeks from return. So cross your fingers, just add some depth. I think that's what you're looking at.
Sure. Let me also throw this out. If Shea is likely to get sold after the season and you've got a starting pair of center backs, why not go ahead and bolster your team now with a really, really good right back?
That's a fair question, and I do not know the answer to why you wouldn't, except that I don't think they're gonna. I think that this window feels to me like okay, you have a team, Lucci. Now you say you can coach them up, and let's see. Because as far as I know, Lucci's contract is running out. So this, to me, feels like, in a way, a test of, Andre, I've given you players. You got to make them better, or you're not the guy for us. That's kind of what it feels like to me. So I'm not expecting a big DP. I'm not expecting really anything other than maybe a little defensive depth. But we've been saying that since Christmas, that they needed a defender, another center back. So even though you're selling Tanner Tessman, and even though Roberts is gone, Colin Smith's going to be with North Texas the whole year, Benny Rezik's hurt, and those 2 dudes weren't going to play anyway. They've already got so many bodies that it's like there's not really. And what are the Hunts going to do? Go spend $5 million on a player? No, that. So that's what I think. I think it's a. I've given you a team, Lucci. Let's see if you're any good. That's what it feels like.
Has your number changed on the Lucci hot seat scale?
No, it has not actually, because I am more convinced than ever. I actually talked to a couple people today. I'm more convinced than ever that the only one that will fire Lucci is Clark Hunt and not Dan. And the only way Clark will pay attention is if something catastrophic happens. Just a relatively bad season is not enough, I don't think, to get Clark to pay attention. Clark pays attention when, you get the Morrow debacle, or when he's in the stands for some reason. Clark was there, I think. Or you get like some stuff that, like the last time I know of Clark being in town was the stuff last year with the anthem and things like that. And then I think he got involved. Right. So it's like Clark's all in on the Chiefs and just won the Super Bowl. He's not paying attention to FC Dallas. So that's what I think. I think they're going to ride it out. The Hunts don't make coach decisions midseason. Morrow, as far as I know, is the only coach that they fired midseason. They fired Jeffries, but that was late in the season. I think Clark got maybe 6 or 8 games. So like your worst case scenario of like a complete meltdown over the next summer, 10 out of 15 are on the road now. Like if that all melts down and you can Lucci at the end of that, you'll have like 8 games left. You'll have like 6 of 8 at home. Maybe that's when you do something. But other than that, I think honestly, with Lucci's contract, I'm 90% sure it's up. I think they'll just ride it out. I really do. Because as you say, they're only 5 points out of 6th place. It's like you win 2 games and you're in the top half of the table. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but they could also get to the end of July and be, 20 points out because it's a brutal schedule, right?
Yeah, but think about where the money comes from. The money comes from the academy. The money comes from selling players. They don't make money on the stands, so they don't care about attendance, right? Do they? They care about season ticket holders, maybe.
Yeah.
Which is a big picture, like, do I like the organization kind of thing, not a, well, they stink right now, I'm not buying tickets this weekend. You already bought, dude. You bought it at the beginning of the year. So like this winter, sorry, I can talk. This winter, for me, that's when they'll do whatever they're going to do. I think they'll just ride it out.
Okay.
Maybe I'm a
Fair
cynic.
enough. We also found out today that the All-Star ballot is out. Buzz, you also have a vote in this. And somehow, some way, am I correct in saying 13, the number 1 followed by the number 3 of Dallas players are eligible to be voted upon in the All-Star game?
Yeah, well, it's the ballot.
Do we know what 13 it is?
No, we do. Well, it turns out you just have to play in 50% of the matches of your team by the time the ballot comes out. So it's it's not that hard to get.
Everybody's got a whole bunch of people allocated on. Okay, all right. This isn't some sort of okay.
Let's do the list though. Let's see if you think any of those guys are getting in. Jimmy
No,
Maurer.
the answer is no.
No, okay. The defenders, this is amazing. Brisson, Hollingshead, Martinez, Munjoma, and Nelson are the defenders.
None of those are all-stars.
Yeah.
I mean,
so.
Maurer maybe because he's had, I shouldn't have said no before you said Maurer, but I'll give a tentative.
Teams.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, midfielder, Costa, Pomacol, Ricarte. Acosta,
Acosta's the closest thing to it.
Yeah, that's what I think. Forwards, Franco Jara, Obreon, Pepe, Vargas. I can see Pepe being a commissioner's choice.
Yeah, you could see Pepe just because of a hype choice that the league throws in there, but not based on performance, no.
Yeah, so maybe Acosta, maybe. I mean, listen, when you're only talking about a team of starters and then a team of backups, so it's like 24 players and you got 30 teams. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of teams that aren't going to have any players at all, and it will not surprise me if that's Dallas. I mean, they're not very good. I mean, Seattle's going to have like 7 guys, so that's going to eat up, almost half the roster, right?
Well,
so
they
Dallas,
should.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas is not. And then on the other side, New England's got a bunch of guys that are all. I mean, there's no East-West, right? It's just one team. So, I mean, I would be stunned if a Dallas gets a player in, other than maybe like a Pepe hype commissioner's pick.
Will you disclose your ballot to the public?
Oh, sure. When I actually do it, I need to figure out how to do that. I'm supposed to send me an email or something, I guess. I don't know.
I'm sure there's a GUI interface,
secret
for you
portal.
to click buttons or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I'm gonna have to do some research, see who I like.
Okay. Well, anything else that we need to talk about here in our non-game?
I think we did the whole Portland 11, and they're missing like until they update the player availability, they're missing like 7 players.
Who? Portland?
Portland, they're missing a lot. And like Blanco's still questionable. Loria's still questionable. Plus they have 5 guys out between injuries and international call-ups. So they're depleted. Now, depleted is relative. They still have Diego Chara. They still have Valeri and Asprilla and Williamson. So they're still really good. And they're looking for points. So they're going to look at this game as a get-well game, if you know what a get-well game is. So Dallas is going to, I mean, look, that's to go to Portland and play. When was the last time they won in Portland? I haven't looked it up yet, but I bet it's like forever. Last year in the playoffs, that would be it. Never mind. And they're going to want
buzz.
They're going to want revenge for that. Portland is. I mean, but before that, it was like 20 years or something, right? It was like one time ever before that. So now it's 2, and now they're going to be mad that Dallas knocked them out of the playoffs. So, I mean, good luck. Poor Lucci. That's the only thing that, like, I was thinking about how to do this. I really think, honestly, that they've totally hosed Lucci. I really do. I think this organization has hosed Lucci.
Well, yeah, we talked about this last week. I don't think, and I'm not suggesting anybody needs to come out and do the dreaded vote of confidence. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that Dan Clark come out and, to the media, put up something on Instagram or whatever it is, and just says, look, we get it. We're not very good. We're working on it. There's a plan in place. Maybe you throw some bullet points out on what the plan is. But to just let Lucci be the sole point of contact for all of this is, I mean, I guess it's to be expected, but even for the Hunts, I find it to be embarrassing. I said that last week. Embarrassing. I'm embarrassed that their club is just letting Lucci dangle by a string like this. It's just so weird.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they hired the guy a decade too early, right? They got rid of because Harrogate makes $3 million. They had to make budget saving moves like dumping Barrios before his contract ran out. They tried to rebuild the offense. O'Brien's a bust. Vargas is a project and hasn't worked out. Paxton, who you wanted to be an MVP caliber player, is not healthy yet. Hara's getting paid $3 million and stinks. Your 2 DP level pay center backs are both hurt and missing. All your right back attempts failed, and so you're using a 17-year-old kid at right back. One of your most reliable players, Ryan Hollingshead, for some reason is all of a sudden unreliable, and you're going with a defensive first left back. You sold your 6 a week before the season. Your 10-ish, 8, whatever it is, you can't figure out how to use him, and no one knows where to play the guy. It's like they've totally set this thing up with a unbalanced roster, and Lucci's hands are tied on any of it, and he's in over his head. It's not, this organization has done this to him, and now he's not helping himself. He's making mistakes too, but the day he was hired, you and I sat here and said, this is 10 years too early. It's way too early. He was supposed to be the North Texas coach. Everybody knows that. He should be where Quill is. They've totally hosed one of their bright young coaching minds they were trying to build up. They've hosed him and possibly wrecked him by putting him in this early. I mean, if they do can him, he's going to have to go somewhere else now to coach. He won't put him back in the academy. No, can't do that.
He would be a fantastic college coach.
Yeah, so they're going to lose the guy they consider their brightest young coach because they hired him a decade too early. Maybe a decade strong. 7, 5, something like that. Wait, at least one coach for sure too early, maybe 2.
Well, and as we all know, whatever does transpire, it's not like they're bringing in a Bob Bradley, Bruce Arena type to somebody with MLS experience or anything like that. That it'll be Eric Quill or Marco Ferruzzi or somebody like that,
Lucene
or Lucene. Yeah,
the only way it's not is if the Gremio dude that Andre's buddies with, maybe that's like the only outsider possibly. But what's that guy going to know about Major League Soccer and American players? Or you still have to build the core of your team around American players. It's not a coincidence that like of the top 11 teams in MLS are all coached by Americans. And the MLS Cup is won by an American coach or a coach that's been here forever, except for Tata. He's the only one that hasn't been here for like 30 years or something, or is outright American. This league is unique, man. It's not, you can't just go sign whoever you want. There's a whole bunch of crazy ass rules. The bulk of your team has to be American. A lot of them American college. You have to know the league and the people to be successful here, I think.
Well, they are a mere 5 points away from a playoff position. They are
amazing.
standing. I know it is amazing, but the rest of July looks terrible. Now August gets a little better because they get 3 of 4 at home in August. But this is the month where we really figure out where the rest of the season goes, because if it just completely jumps off the rails, no matter how easy August or better August may look, it may have gone too far off the rails at that point, and Lucci's fate's probably tied up in these games. So,
well, a little credit to him, because Lucci is staying positive. He's keeping it focused on one game, and like training. A lot of times when the seasons go south, training gets really bad. There's still a positivity, at least from my eyes, standing there. I see a relatively positive group. I don't see people yelling at each other, pointing fingers. I don't see harsh tackles, anything like that. Like some of the signs that it's falling apart inside the locker room. So, I mean, granted, the team's not great, but there, as we seek out something positive, can we hope? That's my one thing, is that it so far it seems like they're not falling apart completely.
Yeah, I don't mean to extend this conversation, but it did dawn on me. I want to ask this question because we've wondered about this role for a while. Who's the leader on this team?
Well, Hedges, but he's quiet. Ryan's the emotional leader, but he's not the work leader, if that makes sense. Paxton's a big leader on this team. His attitude's infectious. People, build off of him. I see a lot of younger players, even if they're older but still younger. They often go to Paxton to ask questions. He's almost like, I'm not going to say coaching, but he plays at a higher level than a lot of guys, so they look to him. On the Latino side, it used to be Grezzo. It's probably Acosta, probably. So those guys. I mean, that's the.
So you have to divide it up between Latino and non-Latino, do you?
I think so. They tend to, for some reason. It seems to work that way. Like, Lucci usually has like a couple of people that can be captain. Like when Grezzo was here, he was one of the 3 because they wanted somebody that was, a Spanish influence. There are cliques in a team.
For sure. There's always cliques in a team.
There's a bunch of guys that only speak Spanish. It's not as bad as it has been in the past sometimes, but there's some guys that don't speak any English at all. Now, all the coaches speak Spanish, so there's not any kind of communication problem, but there's still like a who you hang out with kind of vibe. Yeah. I mean, if you don't speak any English and I don't speak any Spanish, I'm not going to hang out with you probably, but this team does, they do things. I mean, it's not like a negative group. There was a couple of years ago, there was some really heavy cliques. It's not quite like that anymore, but I still think that they have, Hispanic leaders and non-Hispanic leaders, I think.
Well, I'm going to guess, and I haven't done the research to actually prove this out, but I'm going to guess that if you were to go look at the top teams in Major League Soccer, the top 5 teams, I bet if you pointed at one of them, you go, "Who's that team leader?" You'd instantly come up with an answer.
Yeah.
And we've not been able to do that with Dallas for a very long time, and I do think that's part of this team's problem. Is I don't think they have a singular person to fall in behind that leads the way.
Well, Daniel Hernandez would. I mean, he'd smash your face into a locker.
Sure.
I'm trying to think under Oscar.
A generation ago.
Yeah, I'm trying to think under Oscar who that might have been. I mean, Hedges was younger. Who else was kicking around? Certainly not Jesse Gonzalez.
Well, I think Blas Perez was a good leader for this team.
Yeah,
I thought Blas was a big one. Kellen, when he was really playing hard, I thought Kellen was a really interesting young leader. The way that he worked hard, and there's somebody else that I'm just totally brain farting on. That's an obvious one. Ziegler. I think Ziegler wasn't a bad leader. I think Ziegler would be vocal. I mean, Matt is a quiet leader, but part of the reason why I think Matt struggles with national team time is strictly because he's not a vocal player, and I think they insist on having that at that level.
Yeah, I definitely think that Thiago Santos was starting to fill a lot of those shoes right before they got rid of him.
Grezzo was a leader.
Grezzo,
yeah. So I think the team has had it, but I certainly in the Lucci time, there just hasn't been a real definitive leader that I think he can kind of lean on as his second in command to kind of push people around, and I do wonder if that's part of their problem. But there are a lot of problems, and that's not the only one, but that's one of them.
Many. One of many.
All right. Well, do not forget, everybody, that when you're looking for FC Dallas or national team or international club gear, because you know all the new league seasons are about to start, you may want to go grab a new jersey. Go shop at soccer90.com for all of that stuff. They've got all kinds of cool stuff, whether you go actually to the store. Do you know there's actually a physical Soccer 90 store at the stadium? It's on the south side along Main Street. You can walk in and go shop there, and if you've not seen it in person, it's totally worth your time to go check it out. So the advantage to shopping online is that because you are a Third Degree listener, you get 25% off your order when you use the code Third Degree at checkout at soccer90.com. But going to the store is still kind of cool. All right. Now, condolences and pats on the head and hugs to our friend Dan, who is in a deep state of depression over the England loss in the European final. You know, it would be totally cool for you to send him a nice little tweet or something. You wouldn't want to make fun of him or poke, kind of rib him or anything like that about the loss. Don't do that, right, Buzz? We wouldn't want anybody to do that.
No, we would never do that.
We would never want to give Dan a hard time about England losing on penalty kicks again, now would we? All right, so Buzz, thank you for all your time and information today. And next week, we'll get to talk about an actual result.
Yeah, well, it'll make the podcast 30 minutes longer, but that'll be good.
And thank you, FC Dallas Curious Fan. We'll speak to you next week on another edition of Third Degree, the podcast.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.